The wagon wheel cracked like a gunshot in the frozen silence, and Zelda Vance knew with bone-deep certainty that she was going to die out here in this white hell. The blizzard had been screaming across the Missouri plains for 2 days straight, and when the axle finally gave way and the lantern tumbled into the dry goods, the flames took hold so fast she barely had time to grab her dead husband's rifle before the whole thing became an inferno. Now she stood 50 yards from the burning wreckage, watching black smoke punch through the white curtain of snow, her thin coat already soaked through, her fingers going numb inside her gloves. She had left Wyatt 3 days ago with a wagon load of supplies, determined to make it to her sister's homestead near the Kansas border before winter set in hard. Her husband Thomas had died of fever that summer, and there was nothing left for her in Wyatt except memories and debt. The November sky had been clear when she set out, but by the second day the temperature had dropped like a stone and the wind had started to howl. She should have turned back. She should have stayed put when the first flakes started to fall. Should have, could have, would have. All the regrets in the world would not warm her now. The fire was already dying, smothered by the snow, and she knew she had to move or freeze where she stood. But which direction? The world was nothing but white and gray, the wind tearing at her skirts, the cold seeping into her bones. She tried to remember which way the road had been, but everything looked the same. She took a step, then another, forcing her legs to move even as her body begged to lie down and rest. Just rest for a moment. Just close her eyes. She did not know how long she walked. Time became meaningless in the white void. She fell twice, got up both times, though the second time took longer. Her thoughts grew fuzzy and distant. She found herself thinking about her mother's kitchen back in Illinois, the smell of bread baking, the warmth of the stove. She was so tired, so cold. The wind pushed at her like invisible hands, and she stumbled again, went down on her knees in the deep snow. That was when she heard it. A sound cutting through the howl of the wind. A horse's whinny. Then a man's voice, rough and urgent. "Stay there, I see you." She tried to call out, but her throat was too frozen, her lips too numb. She saw a shape materializing through the snow, a massive form that resolved into a horse and rider. The man swung down from the saddle before the horse had fully stopped, boots crunching through the snow toward her. "Christ Almighty, you are half frozen already," he said, and she felt strong arms lifting her like she weighed nothing at all. "I got you. You are going to be all right now." She wanted to tell him about the wagon, about the fire, but the words would not come. He lifted her onto his horse, then swung up behind her, wrapping his heavy coat around them both. She felt the warmth of his chest against her back, felt the horse begin to move beneath them, and then she let herself drift into the darkness that had been pulling at her. She woke in warmth and firelight, wrapped in what felt like a dozen blankets. For a confused moment she thought she was back in Wyatt in her marriage bed, but then the memories came flooding back. The fire, the cold, the stranger's voice. "Easy now," that same voice said, and she turned her head to see a man crouched beside the low fire. He was maybe 28 or 30, with dark hair that needed cutting and a weathered face that spoke of years spent outdoors. His eyes were a startling blue-gray, like winter sky just before snow. "You have been out for about 6 hours. How are you feeling?" "Cold," she managed, though in truth she was finally starting to feel her fingers and toes again, painful pins and needles that made her gasp. "That is a good sign," he said. "Means the blood is flowing again." "What in God's name were you doing out in this storm?" "Traveling to Kansas," she said, her voice hoarse. "The wagon broke. Then it caught fire." "I saw the smoke," he said. "Would not have spotted you otherwise in all this white. You are damn lucky the fire lasted long enough for me to see it." "Where are we?" "Line shack about 12 miles west of Wyatt," he said. "I was checking the cattle when the storm hit, rode out to move them to lower ground when I saw your smoke." She pushed herself up on her elbows, looking around. They were in a small one-room cabin, rough-hewn logs chinked with mud, a single window shuttered against the storm. The fire burned in a stone hearth, and she could see supplies stacked along one wall. Sacks of beans and flour, cans of peaches and condensed milk, spare tack and rope. "I am Zelda Vance," she said. "From Wyatt." "Ryder Calloway," he said. "I work for the Triple Diamond Ranch. This is one of their line shacks." He moved to check the fire, adding another log, and she noticed the easy competence in his movements, the way he seemed perfectly at home in this rough place. He was tall and lean, with the kind of strength that came from hard work rather than bulk. His clothes were worn but well made. Good boots, thick canvas pants, a red flannel shirt under a leather vest. "How bad is the storm?" she asked. "Bad," he said flatly. "Worst I have seen in 5 years. The snow is already 3 feet deep and still coming down. We are not going anywhere for at least 2 days, maybe 3. The reality of the situation settled over her. She was alone in a tiny cabin with a strange man, miles from anywhere, trapped by a blizzard. A year ago, the impropriety would have scandalized her. But Thomas was dead, and she had nearly frozen to death, and propriety seemed like a luxury she could no longer afford. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving my life." He glanced at her, and something in his expression softened. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said. "They would not have, not in this weather. You risked your life to ride out to that smoke." He looked away, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Are you hungry? I have beans and bacon, coffee if you want it." She realized she was starving, had not eaten since before the wagon broke. "Yes, please." She watched him work, moving around the small space with practiced efficiency. He fried bacon in a cast iron skillet, added beans from a can, set coffee to boil in a battered pot. The smells made her mouth water. When he handed her a tin plate and a fork, she ate without speaking, too hungry for conversation. "Slow down," he said gently. "You will make yourself sick." She forced herself to eat more carefully, though every bite seemed like the best thing she had ever tasted. When she finished, he took the plate and poured her coffee in a tin cup, thick and black and strong enough to strip paint. "You said you were heading to Kansas," he said, settling back against the wall with his own coffee. "Running from something or toward something?" "Both, I suppose," she said. The coffee burned going down, but the heat felt good. "My husband died this summer. Fever. We had debts I could not pay on my own. My sister has a homestead near the border. She said I could stay with her and her husband." "I am sorry about your husband." "So am I," she said, and realized she meant it even though their marriage had been more practical than passionate. He was a good man. Deserved better than dying at 32 from a stupid fever. "Most good people deserve better than what they get," Ryder said quietly. She looked at him more closely, heard something in his tone. "You sound like you speak from experience." "Everyone has a story," he said, not quite answering. "Storm like this, we have got time if you want to share yours." She hesitated, then found herself talking. Maybe it was the warmth of the fire, the lingering shock of nearly dying, the strange intimacy of being trapped with a stranger. She told him about growing up in Illinois, about her father's farm and her mother's death when she was 15. About marrying Thomas Vance when she was 19 because he seemed steady and kind, even if there were no sparks between them. About coming to Wyatt 2 years ago when Thomas heard there was land to be had, only to discover the land was mostly rocks and the town was rough as a cob. "We tried," she said. "We really did, but nothing worked out. The crops failed, Thomas could not find steady work, and then he got sick. By the time he died, we owed money to half the town, I sold everything we had just to bury him proper. And now you are starting over, Ryder said. Trying to, she said, though I seem to be doing a poor job of it so far. You are alive, he said. That is not poor. Outside, the wind howled like something alive and furious. She shivered despite the blankets and the fire. Your turn, she said. Where are you from? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. Texas, originally, he said finally. Little town south of Dallas. My father had a small ranch, ran maybe 100 head of cattle. I was the youngest of 4 boys. My oldest brother died at Shiloh, he said, his voice flat. The other 2 died of cholera in '65, along with my mother. My father drank himself to death a year later. I sold what was left of the ranch and headed north. I am so sorry, she said, the words feeling inadequate. Like you said about your husband, they deserved better, he said. The war took a lot of good people. The aftermath took more. She knew what he meant. The war had ended 11 years ago, but the scars ran deep. Missouri had been torn apart during the fighting, neighbor against neighbor, and even now there were men who could not let go of the bitterness. How did you end up here? She asked. Drifted for a while, he said. Worked ranches in Texas, New Mexico, Colorado. Came to Missouri 2 years ago and hired on with the Triple Diamond. The owner, Ben Davis, is a fair man. He pays decent wages and does not ask too many questions about a man's past. And you like it. The ranch work. I do, he said, and she heard genuine contentment in his voice. I like being outside, working with cattle and horses. I like knowing where I stand. You do your job, you get paid. It is simple and honest. Simple and honest sounds nice, she said wistfully. It can be, he said. But it is also lonely. Their eyes met across the fire, and she felt something shift in the air between them. Not anything improper, just a recognition. 2 people who had lost things, who were trying to build something new from the wreckage of their old lives. We should sleep, he said, breaking the moment. You need rest after what you went through. I will take the floor by the fire. That is not fair, she protested. You are the one who saved me. And I am used to sleeping rough, he said. You are still recovering. Take the blankets and do not argue. She wanted to protest further, but exhaustion was pulling at her, the warmth and the food and the lingering effects of hypothermia all catching up with her. She curled up in the nest of blankets, watching as Ryder spread his own bedroll near the hearth. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was his profile lit by firelight, strong and steady and somehow comforting. She woke in gray light filtering through the shutters. The fire had burned low and the cabin was cold, her breath misting in the air. Ryder was already up, feeding wood into the hearth, coaxing the flames back to life. Morning, he said when he saw her stirring. Storm is still going. I went out to check on my horse and nearly got blown over. How long do you think we will be stuck here? At least another day, he said. Maybe 2. I've got enough supplies for a week if we are careful, so we will not starve. She sat up, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Every muscle ached, and her hands and feet were still tender, but she was alive and relatively warm, and that felt like a miracle. I need to go outside, she said, trying to keep her voice matter of fact despite the awkwardness of the subject. Outhouse is 20 feet to the left of the door, he said without looking at her, sparing her the embarrassment. Rope strung from the door to keep from getting lost. Storm is too thick to see more than a few feet. She bundled into her coat, which Ryder had dried by the fire, and ventured out into the howling white world. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath. She followed the rope to the crude outhouse, did her business as quickly as possible, then fought her way back to the cabin. By the time she got inside, she was shaking again. Christ, it is cold, she gasped, huddling by the fire. "40 below at least, maybe colder," Ryder said. "This is a killing storm. If I had not found you when I did, you would have frozen solid within the hour." The blunt words sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the temperature. She had come so close to dying. If the wagon had not caught fire, if Ryder had not seen the smoke, if he had decided not to risk riding out in the blizzard, she would be a corpse under the snow right now. "Hey," Ryder said, and she realized her hands were shaking, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You are safe now, I got you." "I was so stupid," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "I should never have left Wyatt in November. I should have waited until spring. But I was so desperate to get away, to start over, and now I have lost everything. The wagon, the supplies, all the money I had left in the world. I have nothing." "You have your life," he said firmly. "Everything else can be replaced or rebuilt." "How?" she said bitterly. "I have no money, no family except a sister I have not seen in 5 years. I was going to show up on her doorstep and beg for charity, and now I cannot even do that." "You will figure it out," he said. "You are strong enough to have survived what you just went through. That counts for something." She wanted to believe him, but the future looked bleak and frightening from where she sat. Still, crying would not change anything, so she dried her eyes and tried to pull herself together. The day passed slowly. They were trapped in the small cabin by the storm, with nothing to do but tend the fire and talk. Ryder was not a man who spoke just to fill silence, but when he did talk, she found herself listening intently. He told her about working cattle, about trail drives and brandings and long nights under the stars, about the satisfaction of training a good horse, of sitting in the saddle and riding across open country with nothing but sky above and grass below. "It sounds wonderful," she said wistfully. "I have spent most of my life in towns or on that miserable little farm. I never got to just ride for the joy of it. When the storm breaks, I will take you riding," he said impulsively, then looked startled at his own words. "I mean, if you want, before you head to Kansas." "I would like that," she said softly. As the afternoon wore on, she found herself studying him when he was not looking. The way his hands moved, strong and capable. The set of his jaw, the lines at the corners of his eyes from squinting into sun and wind. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, but more than that, there was something solid about him, something trustworthy. That night, they shared another simple meal, beans and bacon and hard biscuits, and she found herself thinking how strange it was to feel so comfortable with someone she had known less than a day. But there was something about shared adversity that stripped away the usual social pretenses. Out here, trapped by the storm, they were just two people trying to survive. "Tell me about your sister," Ryder said as they sat by the fire after supper. "Judith," Zelda said. "She is 4 years older than me. Married a farmer named Henry Mitchell 10 years ago and moved west. We wrote letters for a while, but you know how it is. Life gets busy and the letters get fewer. Last I heard, they had a good homestead and were doing well. You must be close if she invited you to stay." "We were once," Zelda said, "when we were girls, but that was a long time ago. I honestly do not know if she will even want me there. I am just hoping she will not turn me away." "Family is family," Ryder said. "She will take you in. I hope you are right. What will you do when you get there, assuming you make it?" "When not if," she said with more confidence than she felt. "I will help around the homestead, I suppose. Cook, clean, tend the garden, whatever they need. Maybe eventually save enough to get my own place, though God knows how long that would take. You ever think about staying in Missouri?" The question surprised her. "There is nothing for me in Wyatt." "Wyatt is not the only town in Missouri," he said. "The Triple Diamond is always looking for help. The boss's wife needs someone to help with the housework and the cooking. The pay is not much, but you would have room and board." She stared at him. "Are you offering me a job? I am saying I could put in a word for you," he said. "If you wanted, Ben and Martha Davis are good people. They would treat you fair." "Why would you do that for me? You do not even know me." "I know you were brave enough to strike out on your own after your husband died," he said. "I know you kept walking in a blizzard when most people would have laid down and died. That is enough." She did not know what to say. The offer was unexpected and generous, and part of her wanted to accept immediately. But another part, the part that had been hurt and disappointed too many times, was wary. "Can I think about it?" she asked finally. "Of course," he said. "No pressure, just putting it out there." That night she lay awake for a long time, listening to the wind howl and watching the firelight flicker on the ceiling. She thought about Judith in Kansas, about the uncertainty of showing up uninvited after so many years. She thought about Ryder's offer, about the possibility of staying in Missouri, of working at the Triple Diamond, of seeing Ryder Calloway regularly. That last thought made her heart beat a little faster, and she tried to tell herself it was just gratitude, just the natural attachment you might feel towards someone who saved your life. But she knew it was more than that. She liked him. Liked his quiet strength, his dry humor, the way he looked at her like she was worth seeing. It was too soon to feel this way, she told herself sternly. Thomas had only been dead 5 months, and she barely knew Ryder. They were strangers thrown together by circumstance. When the storm ended and they returned to civilization, whatever this was would fade away. But even as she thought it, she did not quite believe it. The second day of the storm was worse than the first. The temperature dropped even further and the wind picked up, shaking the cabin like it wanted to tear it apart. They stayed close to the fire, rationing the wood, talking in fits and starts. Ryder told her about his favorite horse, a paint gelding named Cisco who could cut cattle like he could read their minds. She told him about learning to read from her mother's old Bible, how she still remembered the stories by heart, even though she was not particularly religious. They talked about food they missed, places they wanted to see, things they had loved and lost. "You think you will ever marry again?" Ryder asked as afternoon shaded into evening. The question caught her off guard. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I married Thomas because it seemed like the practical thing to do. He needed a wife, I needed security. But there was no passion in it, no real love if I am being honest. I sometimes wonder if I am even capable of that kind of love." "You are," Ryder said with quiet certainty. "You just have not found the right person yet." "What about you?" she asked. "Have you ever been in love?" "Once," he said. "A long time ago. Girl named Sarah back in Texas. We were going to get married, but then the war started and I enlisted. By the time I came home, she had married someone else. I do not blame her. She could not wait forever. That must have hurt." "It did," he said. "But it was a long time ago. I am different now. She probably is too." "Do you want to get married, have a family someday?" he said. "When I find the right woman. Someone strong and brave and willing to build a life with me. Not just exist side by side, but really build something together." The way he looked at her when he said it made her heart skip a beat. She told herself she was imagining things, reading too much into simple words. But the air between them felt charged, heavy with possibility. That night the storm began to break. The wind died down to a steady howl instead of a shriek, and through gaps in the shutters she could see the snow had stopped falling. By morning the world was eerily silent, buried under a blanket of white that sparkled in the weak winter sun. "We can head back to the ranch today," Ryder said, peering out the door. "The snow is deep, but my horse can manage it if we take it slow." She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt a strange reluctance to leave this small cabin, this brief interlude where the rest of the world did not exist. Once they left, reality would intrude. Decisions would have to be made. This strange connection between them would be tested by the outside world. "All right," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "I am ready when you are." They packed up in near silence, Ryder carefully extinguishing the fire and securing the cabin against the cold. When they stepped outside, the brightness of the sun on snow was blinding. Zelda had to shield her eyes, blinking against the glare. Ryder's horse, a big sorrel gelding, was standing in the crude lean-to behind the cabin, none the worse for wear. Ryder saddled him efficiently, then helped Zelda mount before swinging up behind her. She felt the warmth of his body against her back, his arms on either side of her as he gathered the reins. "Hold on," he said. "It is going to be slow going." He was not exaggerating. The horse struggled through drifts that came up to his chest, snorting and heaving. Ryder guided him carefully, looking for places where the snow was shallower, taking detours around the deepest drifts. The sun was bright but offered no warmth, and Zelda was grateful for Ryder's coat wrapped around them both. The ride took hours. By the time they saw the buildings of the Triple Diamond rising out of the snow-covered prairie, Zelda was numb with cold despite the shared body heat. Her legs were stiff from gripping the horse, her hands frozen even inside her gloves. The ranch was bigger than she expected, a sprawling collection of buildings clustered around a large main house. Corrals held horses and cattle, their breath steaming in the cold air. Men were out shoveling paths through the snow, clearing the way to the barns and outbuildings. One of them looked up as they rode in, his eyes widening. "Ryder, thank God. We thought you were dead when you did not come back before the storm." "Nearly was," Ryder said, swinging down from the saddle. "Found a woman stranded out by the old Miller place. She would have frozen if I had not gotten to her." He reached up to help Zelda down, and she practically fell into his arms, her legs refusing to hold her after the long, cold ride. He steadied her easily, his hands strong on her waist. "Let's get you inside," he said. "You need to warm up." He led her to the main house, a solid 2-story building with a wide porch. The door opened before they reached it, and a woman appeared, maybe 50 years old, with steel-gray hair and a capable face. "Ryder Calloway, you are a sight for sore eyes," she said. "We have been worried sick." "Who is this?" "Zelda Vance, madam," Zelda managed through chattering teeth. "From Wyatt." "Well, come in, the woman said, ushering them inside. "I am Martha Davis. You look half frozen, poor thing. Ryder, what happened?" As they stepped into the blessed warmth of the house, Ryder explained briefly about finding the smoke from the burning wagon, about sheltering in the lined shack during the storm. Martha listened with sharp eyes, taking in every word. "You did well, Ryder," she said when he finished. "Miss Vance, you are welcome to stay here as long as you need. Let's get you warm and fed, and then you can tell me the whole story." The next few hours passed in a blur of warmth and kindness. Martha bustled around, getting Zelda into dry clothes, feeding her hot soup and fresh bread, settling her in a chair by the kitchen stove. The heat made Zelda's frozen hands and feet ache fiercely as the blood returned, but it was a good pain, a sign that she was alive and healing. She told Martha her story, editing only slightly. Martha listened without interrupting, her weathered face sympathetic. "Well, you have been through it," she said when Zelda finished. "But you are safe now. You will stay here with us while you figure out your next move. We have got plenty of room." "I cannot impose," Zelda protested weakly. "It is not imposing if I am offering," Martha said firmly. "Besides, Ryder mentioned you might be looking for work. As it happens, I could use help around here. My rheumatism has been acting up something fierce, and this big house is too much for me to manage alone. If you are willing to help with the cooking and cleaning, I can offer you room and board plus $3 a week. It is not much, but it is honest work." Zelda's throat tightened. You would do that for me, a stranger. You are not a stranger, you are someone in need, Martha said. And anyone Ryder vouches for is good enough for me. That boy has a good head on his shoulders and a good heart to match. He saved my life, Zelda said softly. He has a habit of doing that, Martha said with a fond smile. Now, you look about ready to fall over. Let me show you to a room where you can rest properly. We will talk more when you are feeling better. The room Martha gave her was small but clean, with a real bed and a window that looked out over the snowy prairie. Zelda crawled under the quilts and was asleep almost before her head hit the pillow. She woke to twilight and the smell of cooking food. For a disoriented moment she did not know where she was, but then memory returned. The triple diamond, Martha's kindness, Ryder's quiet strength. She was safe. She got up and made her way downstairs, following the sounds and smells to the kitchen. Martha was at the stove stirring a pot of stew, and Zelda saw Ryder sitting at the long kitchen table with an older man who had to be Ben Davis, the ranch owner. "There she is," Martha said warmly. "Feeling better?" "Much," Zelda said. "Thank you for everything." "Sit, sit," Martha said. "Dinner is almost ready. Ben, this is Zelda Vance. Zelda, my husband Ben." Ben Davis was a big man in his 50s with a weathered face and kind eyes. He stood and shook her hand with surprising gentleness. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Vance. Martha tells me you have had quite an ordeal." "I am lucky to be alive," she said, glancing at Ryder. He met her eyes and smiled slightly, and she felt her heart flutter. Dinner was hearty beef stew with fresh bread, and Zelda ate until she was full for the first time in days. The conversation flowed easily, Ben and Martha asking her about Wyatt, telling her about the ranch. Ryder was mostly quiet, but she felt his eyes on her more than once. After dinner, Martha shooed the men out and put Zelda to work drying dishes while she washed. It felt good to be doing something useful, to be part of the comfortable domestic rhythm. "Ryder is a good man," Martha said as they worked. "Keeps to himself mostly, but he is steady and reliable. He has been with us 2 years now and never given us a moment's trouble." "He seems very dedicated to his work," Zelda said carefully, not sure where this was going. "He is," Martha said, "but he is lonely too. I have seen the way he looks at you, girl, and the way you look at him." Zelda felt her cheeks heat. "I barely know him." "Sometimes that is all it takes," Martha said. "A moment, a connection. I knew I would marry Ben the first time I saw him, 32 years ago. Sometimes you just know." "My first marriage was not like that," Zelda admitted. "But you are not the same person you were then," Martha said gently. "And this time you get to choose what you want, not what is practical or expected. Think about that." That night, lying in the comfortable bed in the small room, Zelda did think about it. About the way Ryder had ridden into the blizzard to find her. The way he had taken care of her in the line shack, respectful and kind. The way he looked at her like she mattered. She had married Thomas for security and practicality. It had been a decent marriage, but not a passionate one. She had never felt butterflies when he entered a room, never counted the hours until she could see him again. With Ryder, after only 3 days, she felt both. It was too soon, too fast. But maybe Martha was right. Maybe sometimes you just knew. Over the next few weeks, Zelda settled into life at the Triple Diamond. She worked alongside Martha, learning the rhythms of running a large ranch household. There were meals to cook for the cowboys, laundry to wash, floors to scrub, vegetables to preserve. It was hard work but satisfying, and Martha was a patient teacher and good company. And there was Ryder. He came in for meals with the other ranch hands, always polite, always finding an excuse to talk to her. He brought her wildflowers when the snow melted enough to reveal them. He taught her to ride properly on a gentle mare named Buttercup. They took long rides across the prairie when her chores were done, talking about everything and nothing. I like being here, she told him one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I like the work, I like Martha and Ben, I like you. She had not meant to say that last part, but once the words were out she could not take them back. Ryder turned to look at her, his blue-gray eyes intense. I like you too, he said quietly. More than like, if I am being honest. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Ryder, I have only been a widow 5 months. People will talk. Let them talk, he said. I do not care what people think. I care about you. I have cared about you since I found you in that blizzard, so fierce and determined to survive. You are the strongest, bravest woman I have ever met, Zelda Vance. I do not feel strong, she whispered. I feel scared, scared that this is too good to be true. Scared that I will lose you like I have lost everyone else. You will not lose me, he said, and the certainty in his voice made her believe him. I am not going anywhere, not unless you tell me to. I do not want you to go anywhere, she said, and then somehow they were kissing, his lips warm against hers, his hands gentle on her face. It was nothing like the chaste kisses she had shared with Thomas. This was fire and need and promise all wrapped together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryder rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said simply. I know it is fast and probably crazy, but I do. I love you too, she said, and felt the truth of it singing in her blood. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Not comfortable or practical, but fierce and alive and absolutely right. They told Martha and Ben that night. Martha hugged them both, her eyes suspiciously bright. Ben shook Ryder's hand and clapped him on the shoulder. About damn time, he said gruffly. I have been watching you dance around each other for weeks. They were married in April in the small church in Wyatt, with Martha and Ben and the ranch hands in attendance. Zelda wore a simple blue dress that Martha had helped her make, and Ryder wore his best suit, his hair freshly cut, his eyes never leaving her face as she walked down the aisle. I, Ryder James Calloway, take you, Zelda Marie Vance, to be my lawfully wedded wife, he said, his voice steady and sure. To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. I, Zelda Marie Vance, take you, Ryder James Calloway, to be my lawfully wedded husband, she replied, her voice strong despite the happy tears streaming down her face. To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Ryder kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and she knew she had finally found home. Ben offered them a small house on ranch property, a 2-room cabin that had been used for storage. Ryder spent his evenings fixing it up, mending the roof and chinking the walls, building furniture with his own hands. Zelda made curtains and planted a garden, turning the rough cabin into a real home. Their wedding night was sweet and tender, both of them nervous despite their prior marriages. But love and patience won out, and Zelda discovered what it meant to truly be joined with someone, body and soul. I never knew it could be like this, she whispered afterward, curled against Ryder's chest, listening to his heartbeat. Neither did I, he said, kissing the top of her head. But I am glad we get to discover it together. Life settled into a happy rhythm. Ryder worked the ranch during the day while Zelda helped Martha and tended their home. In the evenings they would sit on their porch, watching the sunset, talking about their days and their dreams. On Sundays they rode out across the prairie together, just the two of them and the endless sky. You ever think about that blizzard? Zelda asked one Sunday afternoon as they rested their horses by a creek. Every day, Ryder said. I think about what would have happened if I had not seen the smoke. If I had decided it was too dangerous to ride out, I would have missed finding you. I think about it too, she said. About how close I came to dying, but also about how it brought me to you. I lost everything in that storm, but I gained everything that matters. I was so lonely before I met you, Ryder admitted. I had work and friends and a place to sleep, but I did not have purpose. You give me purpose, Zelda. You make me want to be better, do better. You do the same for me, she said, reaching over to take his hand. You make me brave. That fall, Zelda realized she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. Her mother had died from complications after childbirth, and she knew how dangerous it could be. But when she told Ryder, his face lit up with such pure happiness that her fears receded. We are going to be parents, he said wonderingly, his hand on her still flat belly. We are going to have a family. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified, he admitted. But also happier than I have ever been. We will get through this together, Zelda. I promise. Martha was thrilled, immediately taking Zelda under her wing with advice and remedies. Ben grinned and told Ryder he would make a fine father. The other ranch hands congratulated them with genuine warmth. As Zelda's belly grew through the winter, Ryder was endlessly attentive. He rubbed her feet when they swelled, held her hair when morning sickness struck, talked to the baby through her skin. He read to her in the evenings from the newspaper and dime novels, his voice soothing and familiar. "What do you want to name the baby?" she asked one evening as they lay in bed, his hand on her belly feeling the kicks. "For a boy, maybe James after my father," Ryder said thoughtfully. "For a girl, I like the name Rose. What about you?" "James is good," she said. "And Rose is beautiful. Though knowing our luck, it will be something completely unexpected, and we will have to figure it out when we meet them." She went into labor on a warm May evening, 2 weeks before she expected. The pain started slow but built quickly, and Martha sent one of the hands for the midwife in Wyatt while she and Ryder helped Zelda prepare. It was long and difficult, the pain beyond anything Zelda had imagined. But Ryder stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, telling her she was doing wonderfully even when she cursed him for getting her into this situation. Martha and the midwife, a competent older woman named Mrs. Patterson, worked efficiently, and finally, just as dawn was breaking, Zelda heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby crying. "It is a boy," Mrs. Patterson announced, cleaning him quickly and laying him on Zelda's chest. "A big, healthy boy." Zelda looked down at her son, at his red face and dark hair, his tiny fists waving, and felt her heart expand in a way she had not known was possible. Ryder was crying openly, touching the baby's head with one gentle finger. "Hello, James," he said softly. "Welcome to the world, son." Little James Calloway was the pride of the Triple Diamond. He had his father's blue-gray eyes and his mother's stubborn chin, and he grew quickly, thriving on love and good food. Ryder was a devoted father, carrying the baby in a sling while he did chores, singing him cowboy songs to help him sleep, endlessly patient with the crying and mess. "You are a natural," Zelda told him one evening, watching him rock James to sleep. "I just love him so much," Ryder said wonderingly. "I did not know I could feel this much. It is terrifying and amazing all at once." "I know exactly what you mean," she said, leaning against his shoulder. "Our little family." When James was 2, Zelda became pregnant again, and this time she was less frightened, more confident. The birth was easier, faster, and she delivered a daughter they named Rose, just as Ryder had hoped. Rose had her mother's dark hair and a sunny temperament that charmed everyone she met. "Two," Ryder said, holding Rose while James clung to his leg. "We have 2 perfect children." I am the luckiest man alive." "We are both lucky," Zelda said, gathering them all into a hug. "So very lucky." The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. James grew into a sturdy boy who loved horses and following his father around the ranch. Rose was curious and fearless, always getting into things she should not. Zelda and Ryder worked hard, saved their money, and eventually bought their own small piece of land adjacent to the Triple Diamond. It was not much, just 50 acres and a modest house, but it was theirs. "Remember when you were heading to Kansas?" Ryder asked one evening as they sat on the porch of their new home, watching their children play in the yard. "You were going to start over with nothing but hope." "I remember," Zelda said, leaning into his side. "I remember thinking I had lost everything. But I had not lost everything. I had only lost things, and in losing them I found you. That blizzard was the best and worst thing that ever happened to us," Ryder said. "I would not change a single moment, even the scary ones." "Neither would I," she said, "because all of it led us here, to this life, this family, this love. I love you, Zelda Calloway," he said, kissing her temple, "today and always." "I love you too, Ryder Calloway," she replied, "forever and ever." When James was 10 and Rose was 8, Zelda gave birth to their third child, another boy they named Benjamin after Ben Davis, who had passed away the previous winter. Little Ben was a sweet, quiet baby who rarely cried, and James and Rose doted on him. 3 children, Zelda marveled one night, watching Ryder rock Ben to sleep while James read a book and Rose drew pictures at the kitchen table. "Our house is full of noise and life and love. How did we get so lucky?" "We got lucky when you survived that blizzard," Ryder said. "Everything else is just us being smart enough to hold on to what we found." Martha lived to meet her namesake, a 4th child born when Zelda was 35, a daughter they called Martha Rose. The old woman had cried when they told her, holding the baby with trembling hands. "You have built something beautiful," she told them. "You took tragedy and loss and turned it into this family, love, purpose. I am so proud of you both." Martha died peacefully in her sleep a year later, and Zelda mourned her like a mother. But she also celebrated her, knowing that Martha had lived to see them happy and settled, knowing that her kindness had been repaid tenfold. As their children grew, Ryder expanded their ranch, buying more land, building up their herd. James showed an aptitude for ranching and worked alongside his father with pride. Rose was bookish and dreamed of becoming a teacher. Ben loved working with horses, gentling even the wildest with patience and kindness. Little Martha was still young, but she had her mother's strength and her father's quiet determination. "We did good," Ryder said one evening as they celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary with their children and grandchildren, for James had married young and already had 2 children of his own. "We built something that will last." "We did more than good," Zelda said, looking around at the family they had created. "We built a legacy, and it all started with a blizzard and a cowboy brave enough to ride into it. And a woman stubborn enough to survive it," Ryder added, pulling her close. "My fierce, beautiful, stubborn wife." They danced that night, just the 2 of them on the porch while their family watched and cheered. The same porch where they had spent thousands of evenings together, watching sunsets and dreaming dreams that had all come true. When they were old and gray, sitting on that same porch with their great-grandchildren playing in the yard, Zelda sometimes thought about that desperate girl lost in the blizzard, certain she was going to die. She thought about the burning wagon and the killing cold, the white void where she had given up hope. "What are you thinking about?" Ryder would ask, taking her hand in his weathered one. "About smoke signals," she would say. "About how the worst moment of my life led to the best moments." about how grateful I am that you saw that smoke and came for me. I will always come for you, he would say, and even after 50 years of marriage, the words still made her heart flutter. Always and forever. And as the sun set over the Missouri prairie, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Zelda Calloway Vance knew with absolute certainty that she had found what she had been searching for that long ago November, when she set out for Kansas. Not a new beginning with her sister, not charity or security or mere survival. She had found home. She had found love. She had found everything that mattered in the arms of a cowboy who had ridden through a blizzard to save her, and in doing so, had saved them both. Their story became legend in Wyatt, Missouri, the tale of the widow lost in the blizzard and the cowboy who found her. Young couples would ask them for advice, wanting to know the secret to a long and happy marriage. Courage, Ryder would say. It takes courage to love someone completely, to build a life with them, to weather the storms together. And stubbornness, Zelda would add with a smile. The stubbornness to keep fighting for each other, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. But mostly, they would say together, hands clasped, eyes meeting with the perfect understanding that comes from decades of partnership. It takes finding the right person. The one who sees you, truly sees you and loves what they find. Everything else is just details. And as their great-grandchildren played and their children looked on, and life continued in its beautiful, messy, wonderful way, Zelda and Ryder Calloway knew they had been blessed beyond measure. The blizzard had taken everything from her that day, but in the smoke and snow and desperate cold, she had found something infinitely more valuable than any wagon full of supplies. She had found her soulmate, her partner, her forever love. And together, they had built a life worth living, a family worth celebrating, and a love story worth telling for generations to come.